Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today we're taking a look at an expansion to the Big Book of Madness, and about time, I say. This is the Fifth Element. This expansion is technically modular. There are two modules in here, but most of the content is for one new thing, the dark matter. That is a new element, a new color if you would, which you are going to use to fight off some of the monster curses that they'll bring about. New monsters in there. You are going to use that to trigger new abilities in a special book, the Dark Book, that is now part of the expansion. And the other module in here, the other little expansion, is called Phobias, some fears the players are going to have to contend with as they make their way into their deck. The objective is still the same. Close the Big Book of Madness before you are all driven insane and work together to achieve that. So, I'm not going to show you how to play the base game, of course. I'm just going to be taking a look at the expansion. You should check our video for the Big Book of Madness if you don't know the game, though. A really cool cooperative game with a great look to it. But if you're ready to find out what's in here and whether you should grab this, you're at the right place. Let's take a look at it. This expansion comes with two different modules. You have the dark matter, which is pretty much most of this, and then the phobias, which is this little deck over here. You can play these independently, though it is a little bit tricky to separate them, to be honest, because some of these components will use the phobias. So if you're not using the phobias, you need to go through all of these things and make sure you remove any mentions of those. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we are getting in this expansion. All right, you are going to get, of course, the new Fifth Element Dark Matter here. There is a stack of these now that you add to the rest of the components, though these are all value 1. There are no 2s, there are no 3s, they're only value 1s. And for you to acquire these, you are going to discard 2 cards of different colors, and you are going to gain one of these, and that'll start cycling through your deck in the game. You are getting 4 new characters, all of which begin with some of the dark matter cards, and you are going to get some new dark matter curses here that are brought into play from these new grimoire cards. When you're setting up the game, you are going to select a front for the book from the ones in the base game and these. You can just shuffle them up and pick one. But then the ones inside the book, you are going to add 3, 4, or 5 of these new ones that have the dark matter symbol, depending on whether you want an easy, medium, or hard game, respectively. So these are going to have all sorts of new effects and, of course, new things that they will bring into play. So there you go. I'm not going to spend too much time going over these, but there are quite a few more, so there's a nice amount of variety in there. You, as I said, you get these as well, which are just like the ones in the base game, are going to take 4 of the dark matter to deal with these curses. So, besides that, you are also going to get this dark book, they call it, that you are going to prepare at the beginning of the game from all of these cards. And there are a lot of these as well, so a nice amount of variety. This is going to work much like a smaller version of this book over here. The dark matter in the game, so all of these cards here, are going to be used for one of 2 things, pretty much. You are going to use them to deal with these curses, and you are going to use them to trigger spells over here on the dark book. Every time you want to, you can discard the cost listed on this page to take the action below it. And as long as you are doing this page, you do not need to flip a page in the book. So for example, a single one of these will let one other player draw a card. Great. As soon as you do this one, though, which takes 2 dark matter and you draw 3 cards, then you are going to flip the page on the book. And now the costs are going to start going up. You can, again, continue to do this one, but as soon as you trigger this power over here on this side, you once again flip the page. And these get expensive, certainly, but very, very powerful. So they are a resource you are going to want to utilize. Eventually, of course, you are going to possibly go through so many of these powers that you end up closing the book, at which point you can no longer use that book, that dark book. So that is one of the main new additions to the game. These are going to be brought into play in case anything needs an extra token, but that's pretty much it for this new element. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the other module, which are these phobias. These are going to behave just like the original cards in the original game, which are these right here. So they're going to behave just like these madness cards, okay? At the beginning of the game, you are going to set up a deck of madness by combining some of these and some of these into a shuffled deck, still face up, so you still do see what's coming up. And these, every time you draw them into your hand, once they've cycled through your deck, you replenish your hand and you draw one of these, well, you are going to have to assign it to one of the locations on your player board where you could normally suspend a card. And you are going to place them in an empty spot if one is available. If there are none that are available because they are all taken up by cards you are sharing, then you're going to have to cover one up. And that will not be available until you've dealt with this phobia. Curing these phobias is going to cost you 2 cards, and they are going to penalize you with some sort of effect while they are face up in front of you. And there's a bunch of different things in here, such as you cannot take any action using Earth. You cannot take the cure action except for on this card. Curses that apply to all players apply twice for you. You can no longer use support cards, even yours. You can no longer take the fire, an action that uses fire. You can only refresh one spell during the concentration phase. Things of that nature. So there you go. That's what those do, and they are simply going to be a major pain in the neck for you and the other players. They should give you enough of an idea to comprehend what comes in the box here. Let's go back up top. Let me walk you through some of these parts and tell you what I like in the expansion and what I would normally leave out myself. Here we go. All right, so that is the Fifth Element expansion to the Big Book of Madness. I can never say that without thinking of that movie, though. This is overall pretty good, and I'm excited, like I said in the intro, that there is finally an expansion to this game. It's a game I always thought was good. I enjoyed it. I wanted more, and finally there is more available. Not exactly what I thought it would be. I would have been perfectly content with simply more of what was in the base game. This is not really that. This is going to rewrite the gameplay a little bit. It's going to feel different than just playing base Big Book of Madness. And that's not bad. You know, that's it's not quite what I thought it would be, but it is interesting, and it's going to mix up the game if it's grown stale for you. Now, having said that, I don't love everything in the box. You know, I like all the dark matter stuff plenty. I think the phobias feel less important to me, and I find them a little annoying, a little sort of fiddly to deal with. I usually cycle them out. I do wish that they were a little easier to separate. So what I've done is I've just taken everything that mentions the phobias and bagged them in their own Ziploc bag away from the rest of the content, so I don't have to worry about it. That's just my own preference. But let's go ahead and break this down using my target audience system. And overall, it is positive. So right at the top, thematic ties here, great. It's excellent. I love the idea of new monsters in the book, a new powerful matter that you are contending with. Really cool stuff, works very well. And that book, that dark spells book, is really cool. I love having access to that now. Really great. The aesthetics, still gorgeous. This game looks fantastic. Expansion still looks fantastic. Absolutely no problems there. Replayability. This is going to add a lot to the base game. The replayability kick here is considerable. So even on that front alone, if you've played the Big Book of Madness quite a bit and you just want to refresh it, bring it back to the table, add some life to it, this is going to do that no problem. The amount of content here is solid for an expansion. Game length is unaffected, so I had no issues with that. And then lastly, the good thing that I want to talk about is tactics. I think the Dark Book, like I said, is my favorite thing. I think it has a lot of tactics, a lot of interesting things to do. The new monsters are great. And then on the flip side of that, my least interesting, like I said, is the phobias. I found them more fiddly than not. They just sort of get in the way of how clean this gameplay tends to feel for me. The one thing that took a little bit of a ding for me was the ease of play. Largely because of those phobias and because of it not being particularly easy when the game is supposed to be, or the expansion rather, is supposed to be modular, it not being easy to separate the different modules. I should be able to very, obviously and plainly remove one module, leave another module in. It's not that easy. It feels like it's an all or nothing thing in many ways. If you do want to remove the phobias, you'd have to pick and choose some things out of the other expansion to make sure that they don't show up. Now, you can choose to put the phobias in pretty easily without using the dark matter, but not the other way around as smoothly anyway. So that's my main hit there for ease of play. Overall, though, this is a good expansion. I'm very happy this exists. I'm happy with it. I think it's going to add, like I said, a lot of replayability to the game. So I definitely recommend it. It's probably true that I'm talking to people who haven't even played this. And if you haven't, I do recommend it. This is a solid cooperative game with a great look and a fun cooperative deck building mechanism. Once you've played that, or if you have already and you want more, then this is a pretty easy recommendation from me. Big Book of Madness, The Fifth Element. This is going to get a 7.5 out of 10 from me, which is a seal of approval. So there you go, everybody. That's the expansion for the game. Thanks for checking this out with me, and I'm going to see you on the next one.